Good morning, everybody. I'm Lee Vogt, if you don't know who I am. And I'd like to introduce a couple of members of Watershed Management Group who have so kindly represented themselves this morning to show us the initial, talk about and show us the initial plans for flood remediation and for enhancement of the aesthetic image of St. Francis grounds. So without wasting any more of our time, I'd like to introduce Joaquin and Nicole.
Bueno, sí, bueno. Can you hear me? Yes. We're so excited that we have mics in our faces. And
Yes, but those with hearing aids need you to use the mic.
that one,
Yeah. She hasn't.
can you hear me okay?
Your mic.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
the mic.
You want to present yourself, Nicole?
Hi, my name is Nicole. From Watershed Management Group, as Lee mentioned, focused on sustainable built environments. So we're going to be delving into what does that mean? It's a big word. So we'll be explaining that further in our presentation.
Muy bien. And my name is Joaquin Murrieta. I was just talking with Lee about a Joaquin Murrieta Park here in Tucson. That's not my park. Uh, I am the Cultural Ecologist Director at Watershed Management Group. We are a nonprofit organization that we work a lot with watershed health, with built environment, and what is the role of nature in our buildings. How can we control flooding? How can we diminish heat? How can we infiltrate water? How can we invite pollinators and birds and beauty to our built environment like churches and schools and homes and streets and things like that? So Nicole and I were going to present you a rain garden and what happens when it rains here in Tucson, whenever it rains. It still rains, not as much, but it still rains. And what can we do with that water? And how that water guides us to create rain gardens to get that benefit, the benefit of mitigating flooding, the benefit of mitigating heat. We call it heat island. I don't know if you hear of that. And the benefit of beautifying our space as well. That's important. We humans, we like beauty. We like beautiful things. So rain gardens are also for that. But at the same time, we're recovering rivers, we're infiltrating water, and we're doing those things. Is that good? You're going to be here with us or we're going to be here with you for about 45 minutes. It's a presentation. I only have one rule when I'm presenting. I don't know if you have more rules, Nicole, but I love interruptions. So if you have a question, if you have a concern, if you have something you don't like, if you have something you love, just let us know. I love interruptions, yes.
I was just going to say that I understand that the amount of runoff from the rains here is far more than what the whole city uses in a year. So it's good to try to save that water.
Exactly, yeah.
You are correct.
That's very good. Should we start, Nicole?
Absolutely.
Okay. Have you been in A Mountain, Sentinel Peak, Tumamoc? So that picture was taken from there. That's Tucson. It is 1 million people that lives here in Marana, Tucson, Sahuarita area, and that million people, we all require water. And a lot of the time, whenever we talk about water, we just talk about humans. But water is also for nature. And that runoff should be infiltrated for nature. So that way we have rivers. And so it's interesting to see how we live, how do we connect or not with nature in our fantastic city. And if I don't hear interruptions, then I have questions for you. or we both have questions for you. We already introduced ourselves. What do you see here? Milky Way. Somebody else? Just what do you see? A spot. Yeah. One more. Aquifer. Well, you all are right. But if we decided after this conversation to go to Saturn and look back, the Earth looks like that. So it's part of the Milky Way. It's a little dot, because it's a little blue dot in the universe. That's our planet. That's where we are. All the churches, all the football games, all the homes, all the cities, all the countries happen in here. So we love to give perspective on where we are and who we are. We are a unit. We are a unit of human beings here on Earth. And we like to work as a unit of human beings. And what does it mean to be an Earthling? What does it mean to be a person from this fantastic planet? And I love talking in those lines about that level of conversation. Anything else to add to that, Nicole?
No.
We're good?
We're doing good.
So that's home. A very dumb, I ask a lot of dumb questions too. Like, do you see a big pipe bringing water to this planet? There is no pipe. Do you see another pipe taking water away from this planet? There are no pipes. So it's very interesting that the water that is on Earth is been on Earth since the creation of Earth. Isn't that weird? So the water, the coffee, the water, the juices, all those things, all those liquids that we love, they've been here forever, that water. I like to say maybe dinosaurs drink the same water that we're drinking right now. Or maybe we're drinking dinosaur pee. But it's very interesting what's happening at the planetary level with water. We're seeing a lot of flooding in some areas. Very bad news on Texas like 2 weeks ago. Huge amounts of rain. But in some other areas, we're seeing a lot of drought, like where we are right now. So the planet is trying, water doesn't escape. It just stays on Earth. That happened in Mars. Mars followed the same trajectory of Earth, but it didn't create an atmosphere. So all the water evaporates from that planet. But also Earth has another component, which is the magnetic field that is in the rotation of Earth that was able to create an atmosphere. So water doesn't evaporate because the sun is pretty intense. But we have an atmosphere, we have a magnetic field, water stays with us. But it's in constant movement, all right? And Earth is trying to find a balance, okay? That's why we're getting a lot of rain over there, drought here, more rain over there, more drought over here, so enough of that. We're here in the Sonoran Desert, very fortunate to be here in the Sonoran Desert. I was born here in Hermosillo, Sonora, Mexico. I don't know if you've ever been to Sonora, to Hermosillo. Rocky Point, just to give you an idea, is right there. Guaymas is right here. Tucson is right in here. Where were you born, Nicole?
Honduras.
In Honduras. So Honduras, if we follow this, it will be somewhere in here.
All the way down.
Yeah, so anyway, the Sonoran Desert is a very unique desert. Look at the view. This is our desert, and it's fantastic. Somebody asked us there in the over there if we wanted to close the windows. No, we don't want to close the windows. We want to see the desert. It's a beautiful desert. In fact, it's the most diverse desert in the entire planet. That's where you're going to see more flowers, more animals, more plants than any other planet in the world. And there's something flowering all the time in the Sonoran Desert. And that's the beauty of the desert. And the life that provides, it's fantastic. I think, look at that. I'm pretty sure some of you used this stamp. That was in the 80s. The 80s, in the 90s, it was a US post office stamp. They also developed posters of that. I love that stamp. You cannot find it anymore. But if you Google it, you'll find it. But that's kind of the representation of the diversity of the desert. And yeah, there are pointy things, there are unpointy things, there are animales venenosos. How do you say that in English?
Venomous animals.
Venomous animals. But if you start playing with them, they might bite you. So just leave them alone. Just don't play with them. But it's the beauty of this desert that attract us to live here. It is getting hotter. I should mention that. It is getting hotter in the desert. And I blame my grandparents. Because I was wondering, why do I live in the desert? So hot. It turns out that my grandparents came to Sonora to open up a big farming fields in Obregon area. And that's why I was born in Sonora. But my grandparents didn't feel this heat that we're feeling right now. Things are getting hotter, so we need to do something about it. And that's the specialty of Nicole. She likes to cool down things. Very quick, where is the water comes from to the Sonoran Desert? It comes from those mountains. The Carolinas, the Rincon, the Santa Ritas, we call them the Sky Island region between Sonora and Arizona. And those mountains provide water to the desert. That's why it's so diverse. It's also other conditions. The monsoons, the humidity from the Pacific, that type of thing. So check this out. We have several watersheds. That's the Santa Cruz. That river, the Santa Cruz River, starts in Mexico. Well, not true. It starts in the San Rafael Valley. It goes into Sonora, in the area of Cananea. It gathers more water. In that section, this section is a perennial river right here. It's always flowing. And so that's the San Pedro. We have this is the San Pedro, we have the Santa Cruz. That's the Cocospera. That's the Sonoran River that feeds Hermosillo. And that's the Yaqui River that feeds Obregon. But it's very interesting that in this section, 5 watersheds originate, meaning 5 rivers send water to the desert. So we're also working in that area of Mexico / Arizona. Tucson used to look like that in 1880. Small town, agricultural town. At that time, 1880, according to Tom Sheridan, we were around 4,000 people. 80% were Mexican people. Slowly, because these two countries were on a war, just passed a war in 1860s. Sam Hughes, have you ever heard that name? Sam Hughes starting to show up here. Thanks to Sam Hughes, we have some development here in Tucson. Thanks to Drachman as well. So there are some interesting street names that are blamed or that are thankful for the developments that we have here in Tucson. De Gracia also, but that was in the 1900s. His studio was somewhere over there. So anyway, interesting names. What happened to our river and to our town by 2014? What happened to our river? Where did the river go? If Joaquin says that the water doesn't escape the planet, why do we have a dry river? Isn't that sad that we have a dry river? I want to have a river in the city. Do you want a river here in Tucson?
I do.
Do you guys would like to have a river here in Tucson? Yeah, that's kind of our job.
We used to. They had steamboats on it.
Yeah, steamboats, I don't know.
No, I saw a picture.
Really?
A paddle wheel boat.
Okay.
Cool.
That must be, I don't know, that's fantastic. I seen those in the Colorado River, not in the Santa Cruz. But I would love to see that image. Uh, it's a lot of things that happen that dry up this river, mainly pumping, mainly industrial use, mainly, I like to say that the river is in the house. It's in the built environment. We get up, we turn our faucet, water comes out. So that used to be, or that is still Santa Cruz River water. Some of it comes from the Colorado now. So can we have less water in the house and more water in the river? So that's the beauty of conservation of water. That's the beauty of infiltration of water or rainwater. And we're going to talk about that. This is the Santa Cruz River. That's a mountain where that first picture was taken. Which river do you like more? This one or that one? You like this river? This image is an image. It's a drawing, but it's based on ecological information. 40 to 50 years from now, science is telling us that we can have this river right here in Tucson if we are more in tune with the water that these watersheds provide. Right now, it's Tucsonian, and I congratulate you because we're using 76 gallons per person a day. But remember, we are 1 million people. 6 years ago, we were at 80 gallons, and that was a huge accomplishment. 20 years ago, we were 112 gallons. Guess how much Phoenix use? Each Phoenician. Hopefully not. Some maybe. In average, Phoenix is around 130 gallons per person a day. That's bad. And we at Watershed Management Group, some of us, we have this term hydrolocality. How local is your water? Some of us, like in my home, I'm at 50 gallons per person a day. I'm very proud of that. The directors of Watershed Management Group, they are at 12 gallons per person a day. For example, we don't flush toilets. We have dry toilets. Yes, we go to poop and everything like that, but we have dry toilets because each toilet uses 25% of water on whatever building we are. It's a lot of water. I like to say it in a very funny way that we are pooping on drinking water. Is that the way to poop? Yes, please flush the toilet, yes. But is that the way to do it? If you're the water, it's kind of a, oh my God, here they come again. So we're always looking for ways to be hydro-local. There are other ways to poop. It's dry toilets, and they are fantastic. They are very efficient, they are very clean, no smell, no nothing like that. So there are ways of doing more conservation. If we are at 40 gallons per person a day here in Tucson, that's when this river is going to start showing up more. All right? In order for a river to flow, and that's the beauty of St. Francis, where you are, this is one of the main infiltration areas of the Tucson Basin, because it's a lot of rocks, it's a lot of mountains, it's a lot of creeks that come down whenever it rains. Think about Sabino Creek, for example. All that is water that is infiltrating to the Tucson basins that then we drink. All right, that's the origins of water. Yes, I talk a lot about this. So kind of this is the river in Mexico, right here in San Lázaro. I took that picture like maybe 15, 20 years ago. And this is how it looks here in Tucson whenever it rains. Which river do you like more again? Tucson used to look like this in the up to 1960s, 1950. All right, yes. By 1980, that's when we dry up the river. So all those Tucsonians, I already talked about that. There is a lot of people that lives in the Sonoran Desert, from Phoenix to Guaymas, San Carlos area. Is 13 million people that lives in here. How do we balance water for people and for nature? Because we need water, but nature also needs water. The little birds and trees and all that. That's a watershed. I don't want to talk much about that. We are part of the Colorado River. Some of our water comes from that river. That's the river. That's a lot of conditions of that river. We're here in the Santa Cruz watershed, and we're also part of the watershed of the Colorado. This river, whenever it flows, connects to the Gila, and the Gila connects to the Colorado. I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to let Nicole ask that wonderful question. What happened when it rains in Tucson?
Well, before I ask that question, I just wanted to add what Joaquin is saying is us reducing our water usage, reducing and eliminating our dependence on that Colorado River watershed is what's going to help us bring us back to having a flowing river. That flowing river, the Santa Cruz, it flowed for thousands of years, year-round. And we can, as an organization, but as individuals, we believe that we can see that river flowing again by making measures like dry toilets and other things, reducing our own individual water consumption, but also bringing this nature back into our urban environment, allowing water to infiltrate, bringing nature in ways that we have kind of forgotten when we had developed in those early times of Tucson. I see your hand up.
Okay, I want to know how much of the Colorado River water is shared with other states and sold to other states?
That's a great question. So the Colorado River watershed, that water is shared between 7 different states and 1 country, so Mexico. And the 7 states, we have Nevada, New Mexico,
Colorado. I'm
Colorado,
cheating. I'm reading over
California. We're one of them. So quite a lot of different states, and right, it's become a bigger issue now that we're seeing that this whole region, it's not just us that are experiencing drought. And that water was at some point in the agreement made between states was a bit over allocated. It was based off of flood years and not actual average. So it was already over allocated when the agreement was made. And then as with drought exacerbating the water, it's become a big issue to the point where each state has developed their own water drought plans. So what to do in different classes of things to do to react to that less of water, receiving less of that water. I do know Tucson Water pats themselves on the back, as they should, because we have been able to actually bank some of that water. What we mean by that is we receive our allocation of Colorado River water, and we've been able to put that right back into our local aquifers. Yeah?
Yes, the city of Tucson is now negotiating to bring in a huge plant that will create AI that
Yeah.
will use thousands of gallons of water.
Correct.
That is not going to help the problem, so what do you suggest?
We've actually been hosting our own Project Blue information sessions because the numbers that they're giving the company versus the numbers that we are figuring out are just not matching. They're claiming water positivity and a whole lot of other things to kind of get this project approved. So what we recommend is we have postcards that people have been able to come pick up at our office and sign and send to your council members. There's already at least 1 council member who is at a very hard stance no. I think we're getting 2 of them also are they haven't made a full stance, but they're also kind of leaning towards no. But there's been such a large amount of public involvement. I think there was an info session just 2 weeks ago on the east side at Micah Mountain High School, and people showed out in the hundreds, filled the room. There's another one on Monday. I know I plan on going. A lot of us at the office are very much against this project because of what you're saying. Tucsonans have done an incredible job when it comes to reducing our water usage. Just like Joaquin said, In the early 2000s, we were at over 100 gallons per person per day. We have reduced that into the 70s, and that is a huge win. But because of Tucsonan individually, our citizens made that decision and made those choices to reduce the water. And now that excess water isn't making the city money, and so that's why they're trying to sell this water to a project. So definitely stay involved, keep up with it, either on our website, but then also we can go really deep into that, and we won't spend a lot of that time. But yes, that is happening, and luckily there's a lot of people who are vocalizing their concerns that are very legitimate.
Yeah, personally, as well as the organization and other organizations, we stand that that's the wrong type of development for the city of Tucson. There are other ways to develop, there are other ways to generate jobs and things like that, but not by selling the water that we've been saving so we can have a river. Because water is not only for humans, water is also for nature. So we're trying to balance that. I'm not against technology, we're not against technology, but it's not just the right development here for this city. Not in a desert, yeah.
So residential home developments have to establish a 100-year, show
Right.
that they have a 100-year guaranteed water source. When does the math on that stop working?
Yeah, and that's a very good question. I'm not going to answer it because we keep saying that. That's a 100-year development, 100-year development. What the little bit of answer that I'm going to provide is that we're trying to influence to see rainwater as a resource for residential and for commercial use. Like I mentioned, our office, we're self-sufficient on water. And we're 14 people. Self-sufficient in the sense that we drink the rainwater. We use that rainwater for irrigation of our landscapes and things like that. And we also have two cisterns up to 15,000 gallons, and that we treat that water, we make it drinkable. And so there are ways of doing that. And that's what somebody mentioned, that the amount of rain that we get in the city of Tucson still can provide for most of the needs of the city of Tucson, if we develop as part of the water cycle. All right? So there are ways of doing that. And that math, the 100 years, start getting into that question. If we want to get to the point of what is the role of St. Francis to being hydrolocal, to looking into water security for humans and for nature, to look into water conservation. 30% of water here in Tucson is for outdoor use, to irrigate plants, to wash cars, dogs, and things like that. Rainwater can do that. So if we have rain gardens in the city, we immediately start saving 30% of water. So that's getting into that question in the technical, not in the policy thing, but in the technical ways of securing water for humans and for nature. But if you look at that, from here, this is Tucson, once again. These are the Carolinas. From here to more or less here where the lining is several miles. Let's put 5 miles if you take Skyline. And the rain that monsoon maybe is, I'll put a mile in width. It's 5 miles in length. And the clouds are around 2 miles in height. So that's a cube of 5 miles by 1 by 2 full of water. What happened when that water hits the city? A lot of things happen with that water. And for the most part, we don't use that water. It just creates issues, like flooding, like a lot of surface runoff, like a lot of potholes in the streets, like a lot of sediment that moves everywhere. like a lot of trash that moves from the arroyos to the rivers, all those things. And are we ready for the rain? What do we do? What do you guys do when it rains at your home? Start raining right now. What do you do? I love asking that question.
Grab my bucket.
Go inside, get wet, do the rain dance. We do all kinds of crazy things whenever it rains. But more than what do we do is, are we ready for it? And again, we do these things because we want to see rivers flowing back here in Tucson. And it's not a nostalgic thing. We look at nostalgia, we look at history to see the future. And that river is never going to look like that ever. It's going to look something different. By 1980, it looked like that. And so what Nicole and I are saying right now, you want to talk about this one?
Mm-hmm.
Go for it, Nicole.
So like Joaquin is saying, we're not going to get 100% back to what that image looked like, right? The beautiful free-flowing river with the mesquite bosque, but we can find something in the middle, because you can see from that image, we went from a beautiful free-flowing river to just road and a very channelized, rigid river. And that takes time to move back to our original state of rivers. So we're not going to find that. We developed a bit too quickly without keeping nature in mind, but we can find something in between. So what happens when and why Joaquin was asking that question of, are we actually ready? You know, my street side, I live on Tucson and Glen. Tucson loves to turn into a river. The moment we get not even a 1-inch rain, and that whole street is a river. You could just take a whole kayak down. You know, and so that's what happens to a lot of our city roads when we just get not even an inch of rain. And a big attributor to that is how our urban landscape looks like. We have so much hardscape, impervious cover is what we call it. That's your concrete, your asphalt, all these things that water really struggles to permeate through. And so you see, this is what our city looks like on the right. I think it's your right, yes, you're right. So we're getting 55% of runoff. That's a lot of runoff, and especially the way that our water comes, it comes in 15 minutes. So that's a lot of water running off very quickly, causing a lot of dangerous issues, sediment problems, pothole issues. We get very little infiltration, 10% shallow, 5% deep. And we get a lot of evotranspiration as well. But then if you look at that picture where there's all nature, natural ground cover, you see it's only 10% runoff. That's a huge difference, you know? And we get way more of that infiltration, the shallow and the deep. The deep is what's feeding our aquifers versus the shallow is what feeds our plants. So we really want to find something in the middle, because like Joaquin said, we've developed so quickly without keeping nature in mind. Moving back to bringing nature back takes time. It can happen very quickly, though, when it comes to rain gardens, and we see that in our work all the time. We even, earlier this week, warned Kate and Lee, once you start doing this stuff, it's really addictive, because once you start bringing nature back and seeing how powerful just adding more impervious or a more infiltrating soil, it really changes your landscape. Yeah, I saw your hand first.
At one time, many of the streets in Tucson were arroyos.
Yeah.
They built the streets.
Correct.
And Algernon is notorious.
Oh, absolutely. We see it all the time as water people, you know. I'm like, oh, there's a wash, and then now that's turned into pavement. We see that all over our city, and once again, that goes into this mindset of we're not hydrolocal. We're not thinking about nature as we develop. So what does it look like now as we start to address those flooding issues or heat issues? How can we develop with nature in mind? Yeah.
Can you speak to how evaporation contributes to cooling?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have evotranspiration. So I like to simple it down to plants breathe water. So, like, we all have a water cycle, right? We have the larger water cycle of the earth, but plants also have their own water cycle. They bring in water from their roots, and then as they're channeling that water through to their leaves, to their branches, they're also losing a little bit of that water to the air. And so that's what we call evotranspiration, is that water near plants are also cooling that space around. So it's not just shade of trees that's important, but it's also having more maybe bushy nature looking around. So it's also a change in perspective of what our landscapes can look like. Because our desert is very diverse. We are the most diverse desert in the world. It's because we're the wettest desert in the world, but you don't see that reflected in our landscape. What you see is mostly cactus or some agaves, which are also great. But we also have flowering plants all year round. We have the highest number of bees in all of the nation. We have in almost every type of like bird, insect, we are insanely diverse. Like we're in the top 5 for our nation. But you don't see that reflected in our landscape. So when we start bringing that nature back, we're not just bringing that biodiversity back, but we're bringing back that cooling potential. We have plants that are maybe our understory on top of a tree. So then we're maximizing that cooling potential for a space rather than just having a lot of bare, open gravel soil, which is what you see a lot of our landscape be.
So thank you, Nicole. Fantastic explanation. Just think of whenever you're underneath a shade of a tree, sometimes you can even feel tiny, tiny little droplets of water. That's the cooling effect. That's the evapotranspiration that Nicole is saying, and it transpires into the atmosphere, into the air, and that's why it's also cooling. Yes, the shade is important, but also the evapotranspiration, because you have a living organism that is breathing, and it breathes water, and that's part of the water cycle. So how close is St. Francis to the water cycle? One of the reasons we're looking at here in St. Francis of flooding issues, that's why we got this phone call and visits, and that's why we're here, is because we're not infiltrating 50% of rain on our campus. What is it that the cities, and this is all the cities in the world, not only Tucson, the cities have one common thing. They have hard surfaces. They have rooftops, concrete, sidewalks, streets, compact soils, all those things. And water, what it likes is to get infiltrated. Oh, I need to infiltrate. But in the city, we don't find places to infiltrate. To the contrary, we're taking water away from the city. Wait a minute. I belong here. That's what the water is telling us. I want to infiltrate in order to provide the cooling effect, in order to provide the rivers, in order to provide the flowers, in order to be part of the water cycle. So whenever we say a rain garden or flood mitigation with nature, we're trying to get closer to those numbers. Can we infiltrate 50% of the rain here in St. Francis? Yes, we can. So that way we don't have flooding issues. We're infiltrating that water, as opposed to the water going into the office area over there. Why? Or we're going to see why it moves like that. So this is just rain gardens, water harvesting, green storm infrastructure. The only thing we're doing is come back to our natural numbers in an urban environment. So we have a lot of opportunity here. That's the surface runoff. It's a lot of water that moves in what used to be arroyos, that moves in the street. And the streets are not infiltrating water. All right? That's why Project Blue is not welcome here, because we don't have that water to cool down a bunch of computers. Yeah, and the city's getting hotter as well. So we talk a lot about that. How do we do these rain gardens before we get into the project or the process that we're gonna get here in St. Francis? And hopefully you like what we're presenting. so we can diminish flooding and we can diminish mitigating some of the heat as well in our church here. And we're just going to go over a process. This project happened last year thanks to the support of St. Philip's of the Hills Church. They support us to work with Prince Elementary School because of flooding and heat components. And so this Barbara comes from the church. This is the principal of Prince Elementary, and this is a Watershed person. That's me. And, and I love that picture because it put together a church, a nonprofit, and a school to cool down the city and to mitigate flooding for that school. The church paid for it. So that's beautiful. Whenever a church calls us to do work, I get very excited. Because I'm also looking, or we're also looking for the community governance that Tucson has. Sometimes government do whatever they do, but also community organize themselves. And churches and schools, some HOAs, for me that's community governance. How do we organize together? Yes, the government is doing their thing, but we are also doing our thing. So that's why I highly respect churches whenever they come in a progressive way to have a better city, a better community, and that's good governance. So enough of that. We have educational processes to churches, schools, neighborhoods. We explain what we're saying in terms of rain gardens and watershed. These are the kids that are understanding the water cycle. We can also do that here to your congregation. So you're part of this project that Lee and Keith are sharing with us. They are designing their rain garden, and these are elementary students. So anyone can actually do this type of work. And they're explaining why they designed it that way. It's fantastic to hear that. Oh, because the water goes this way, and it goes into the parking lot, and that type of thing. And then we select a site. And Kate and Lee, we did that 2-3 days ago. We were here. So for this school, we selected 2 sites, that one and this one. Do you like that? That's full of gravel. Imagine how much heat that's generating. And imagine how much water is getting out of here. Flooding, Prince and Stone. This is a flooding area. And it's a heat area as well. So it's very interesting. Whenever we have heat zones, a lot of times they're also flooding zones. So the solution is right there. We just need to plant the water to grow trees, to cool down, and to diminish heat. So it's a nice pair of that. This is the design that the students came up with for both areas. This is the whole campus of the school. So we only did those 2 sections on this project. But we have ideas and plans to do this whole school. But that costs money, and schools don't have funding for that. So we're always looking for that type of funding. And we're collaborating with other government agencies here in Tucson to do this type of work. So again, we have some important dates that we need to select here for St. Francis as we move forward with this project. Days like design, days like education, days like presenting what we're going to do, days like selecting a weekend or a work day during the week. When are we going to do this here at school as a community? Nicole and I, we're not going to come with shovels and things and do this. We never work alone. We work with the community, and we want to work with you here at your church. So that's the design, that's the scale of things. This was more for flooding inside the school and rain gardens. This was more for shading and diminished flooding for the street. All right? There is some prep work that we do. Yes, Nicole and I, we come along and we bring machines and things like that, because soils are very hard and compacted and things like that. So that's part of the prep day. We bring excavators, backhoes, or bobcats, or machines that help us with what we call basins. And we're going to, some of the ingredients that these rain gardens have is some wood chips or mulch. We don't like to have bare grounds. So the wood chips help us to infiltrate the water and to diminish evaporation of that water. And also to develop organic matter to the soil. That's in the process of being done for the excavation. Those are the native plants that we acquire. That's another ingredient for the rain garden. Those plants, particularly grasses, help us a lot in water infiltration, break out soils, and bring additional organic matter to the soil. So it's not just infiltrating water. We're creating a micro environment, microclimate that is going to infiltrate water, diminish heat, as well as diminish flooding. Are we good still? Yeah.
For that roundabout area
Mm-hmm.
where you planted trees, were you able to harvest off other parts of the property to water?
Yes, but they didn't let me. Because those are the things that we need to negotiate with school districts, not with the school. The principal of the school wanted to do it, but the school district didn't allow her to do it. And that's part of the bad governance. But it's big enough that we were able to harvest passively some of the rain, not from the pavement, but from the landscape. Am I making sense? Yeah. The idea was to cut some curb on that roundabout, some curb cuts, so the water can go into the trees. But we weren't able to do that. Okay? And you're going to see that. So these are the plants from local nurseries that they specialize on native plants, grasses, plants, shrubs, trees. These are the kids. To see a kid getting so excited about planting a plant on their school, it just changed their life. And because they were talking about water, about trees, about their community, all those things. And they invite their parents for the work day. These are the tools that we bring, that we use. So the work day, what we do as a community is the fun things, I call it, is we do the final shape of the excavation we did with machines, with rakes and shovels and things, and making sure that the water is entering nice and it's going to have a nice overflow, that type of thing. But we do it with that. We final shape, and you're going to see pictures of that. Okay, I'm going to stop there. This is the work day. In this school, that was in October, we started at 7 in the morning. And people come to work. It was on a Saturday. The church provided food, drinks, registration. We invited the parents of the school. They invited volunteers from the church. We invited additional volunteers from the office. So it's a work day. It's a community work day. And we register for insurance purposes. We have liability insurance and all those things, so we're able to do this. And people get to work. They come, they register, and here they're planting. We did the final shape of this. It was a mess before. It just looked like somebody excavated. But they did the final shape. That's the first thing we do. Then we plant the plants. All those are going to go on the ground. And then we add the mulch. And that's kind of what we do. And we design things in a way that we finish that day in 4 or 5 hours. Okay? So we do the prep work. We have a work day. And the prep work takes usually 1 or 2 days, depending on the scale. And then the work day is for 5 hours, depending on volunteers. But the idea is to finish that same morning. And then we celebrate. This is the principal of the school, final touches of the basins and all that. This school got so excited together with the church that they invited Arizona Public Media. I can share that video because they put together a very nice video on the public television here on Channel 6. And that's one of our friends, the producer, David something. Yeah, I should send you that video because it's a community process on how we do these rain gardens. And they're interviewing kids, they're interviewing church people, they're interviewing some of us. We're finalizing the rain garden. We invited Kevin Dahl talking about Project Blue. This is the first and maybe the only person, city council, that say no to Project Blue. And he's a good friend too. He's also sponsored some of our projects publicly on Ward 3. I wanted to cut a curb here because water pounds in here. So if I cut the curb here, all this will get inundated. But the school district didn't allow us to do it. And we explained, we showed things. No, this is a brand new thing. We don't want to mess it up. You're not going to mess up anything. Anyway, I didn't convince them to do it. So that's why we put cacti plants in there, because they're not getting much water. We're putting the mulch or wood chips. We imitated the rain. All those kids got wet with a hose, making sure things. And then the celebration was the church provided food for everyone. That was fun. And we're sharing the experience of planting a rain garden. That's how we look after. We had a lot of volunteers here, so in 2 hours we were done. By 10, we were already having lunch because we finished. That was fantastic. That was a good day. A word of caution, like Nicole mentioned, whenever we do these things, or whenever I do these things, it rains. It rains the next day. So we finished this on Saturday, and you can tell a little bit of water there. And so water will get captured in here just by the rain, the landscape. We created some berms, some very nice, very shallow basins that you cannot even see. So water will get captured in there to feed these trees that we planted everywhere in there. And there is the rain, all right? So this is a little basin. With the soil that we excavated, we created a berm. And that's what is going to harvest the rain right there. Before, rain just used to get out to the street. So now it's going to stay here and in here, in those series of basins. You can tell already some water. There was a very minimum rain in October. So that's what we captured. I got so excited about it. Again, the little water that basin, there is a berm that you can see there. That's the other thing, the school district didn't let us take the gravel away. We wanted to put mulch because of heat. No, the gravel will stay. Okay, we'll keep the gravel. That's the final look of that thing. This is another school. That's how we finished. This is the poster child of rain gardens for flood mitigation. That's how we finished that project. And that's the first rain. It's water infiltrating that. Before, you're going to see a picture here. That's kind of, we finish in May. This might be like in the spring of the following year. This is the first year the garden is being established. It does require irrigation the first 2 years or 18 months, depending on what we plant. But we transform spaces from this. Whenever it rains here, talking about flooding, water just gets out of the roof and it goes into the street. nothing diminished the speed of water right there. Rain gardens, the only thing we do is three things. You remember those three things? Diminish the speed, spread the water, and infiltrate that water. That's all we do. Diminish speed, spread, and infiltrate. All right? Just depends where. So from this, we started this project like that. And that kind of reminds me the area where we want to work here. Nothing diminishes the speed of water here in St. Francis. It just flows. And there is so much opportunity to diminish the speed here. So from that to this in 4 years. Yeah. And these plants are creating that evapotranspiration that Nicole mentioned. These plants, the bigger trees, are shading the building, so it's less cooling. Some of those plants, they shed their leaves, so in the winter, they get the sun into the building, so less heating. So those type of designs that we take advantage of the plants.
And is there no irrigation? This is all because of how you
After the first, second years, there is no irrigation. Unless you want to maintain it green all the time and looking beautiful, a little bit of water also helps. But yeah,
And the other question was, you don't provide the plants, but you pick them out from the waters.
it's part of the project. Yeah, we bring them, we plant them, the whole thing. It's part of the project. It's part of the ingredients. A rain garden, what it requires usually is 4 things. Is the excavation, the design is the excavation, is the plants, is the wood chips or mulch, and sometimes rocks to diminish overflowing things, erosion. And that's the cost of the main cost of the rain garden, is the design and those ingredients, the plants, the rocks, the mulch, yeah, and excavating. The excavation is one of the biggest ones. Yes.
So, all this, if you have a cost of, you get the, you charge a certain price.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. These just examples of different areas that we have worked. Yes.
Yes, I came to hear what's your plan for this church.
Yeah.
What's
It's
your plan? Because we're overtime.
it's coming up. We transformed that corner into that, and after 6 years, it looks like that. And we created a desert tortoise habitat for that school. From that, diminished flooding in that school with rain basins that harvest the rain right there. This is one of my favorite projects as well at Empire High School. From that's how we finished the project, and in 7 years it looks like that. That's a pollinator garden. This is another church, another Methodist church on South Tucson, New Hope Church, and that's how we started. That's how we finished that section. This was a 3-stage church project. These are the people that make it happen. Yes, the workday, volunteers. We explain what we're doing. We have breaks, some snacks and drinks. People got so excited, or the church got so excited, we retrofitted their parking lot into a rain garden as well. Plus, we got additional funding to do these type of things. So we transformed the parking lot into a park. We brought trees, so water gets infiltrated in here, as opposed to creating flooding over here. Finally, we're here in St. Francis. I don't know if you recognize that image. That's your property. Beautiful cross streets of Swan and River. And these are the sections that we talk about implementing this project. We divided in 4 sections. This is priority 1, that's where flooding occurs. Correct me, Lee and Kate, if we are not correct in here. Section 1, this is section 2, which is in this area. This is including the kids' educational area with potentially some active systems we talk about, some tanks and things to harvest the rain so we can water some vegetable gardens. That's also possible. That's section 3, and minimum that's section 4. Section 4 is actually looking pretty good. Maybe additional plantings over there. So those are the sections that we're thinking of working, not all at once. All that depends on timing, on funding, on enthusiasm, all those things. But I'm going to concentrate on this section of the flooding section. We are right here. How do you call this building? Celebration Center. I love that name. Need to celebrate things. Celebration Center is here. So this is the section that we agreed to work first, all right? And I only, by hand, very rapidly this morning or last night, I just put some representation of those this is how the water moves. It comes from these buildings, from these 1, 2, these buildings sheds the water that way because it doesn't jump this sidewalk. So all this water from 1 to maybe, this building sent it that way. And the landscape, all that water comes into here. There is a drain right there. And that's why you have those little sacks of sandbags, because it inundates. This is the office, right? All right. So we know how the water moves, and you can tell. If you walk over there, you're going to see a little movement of water, a little erosion, a little creek. We start like that, start with observation. So I just draw what is going to diminish the speed is those basins. And I just throw it there. So those basins are the ones that are going to have the plants, the mulch, the wood chips, the rocks, the grasses, all that. I didn't put them there because we saw the pictures of that. That's part of the design that needs to happen in more detail. And part of the design is also the volume that we're going to be dealing with, and that is going to give us the dimension of these basins. I can provide a copy of all that, yes. And so those are the basins. And in terms of cooling, Nicole is also putting together a plan.
Rough plan.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, the rough plan is just going to include the different phases since you have such a large campus and a lot of potential for cooling and for addressing your flooding issues. You know, this is the main flooding issue that was pointed out to us, but you have like 2 to 3 different other areas that are experiencing flooding. So my cool consultation and recommendation plan will just have more like what this image has, which is the different phases, priority levels, and then what you do in each of those phases, whether it be an active system like adding rainwater harvesting tanks, or passive systems, which is the basins and that kind of stuff. So that's what my plan recommendation will have, so that you guys can, I know Kate still has to bring this up to the trustees. So, yeah.
We also put together a very rough estimate. For this section, the cost of the whole thing, it came up to this area, to $14,000, all right? That is with your help. And you pay some of our time to guide the whole process. We never leave you alone. We work with you to do these things. This can be a community process. You invite your group, your community. We can also invite community to come here and have a volunteer day. All right? And yes, we can provide a copy of all this. And this is an estimate. Estimates can go down or up, all right? in order for us to move forward, we need to at least verbally agree, yes, this sounds good, let's do it. And then we start scheduling things and looking at calendars and looking at processes to do this rain garden here at St. Francis. I think we can stop here. And this is just the basin of Tucson, very quick. Here we are doing river restoration on Tanque Verde or Villito. This is my home. We also do a lot of water harvesting and education. So this is what we wanted to share with you. The area that we want to concentrate is this section here in St. Francis, because here is where water gets funding, and then that water gets into a drain, then it gets into the parking lot, and then it gets a lot of more speed, and it has a lot of speed to go to the Rillito River. Guess what happened with that water? Nobody asked that. Nature, water that we don't infiltrate, nature evaporates that water. And that's why we have more flooding somewhere else. Because it's the water that we didn't infiltrate is moving away from us. So that's pretty sad to see that water going away. Wait a minute, that water we can infiltrate it here, because we also want rivers here. I think that's it. Any additional observation? You're going to have a copy of this. We're close, we're always in contact. Give us a phone call, text, messages. Yes, we are busy, but we always have time for our community. And there were a couple of questions, but yeah.
Well, on the basins for this area, do they capture, your calculations show an overflow?
We need to do those calculations. We haven't done that, but that's the idea. The basins are the depth that we use, since this is a public area and we just hear it. And we like to ask that, how do you use the space? Kids sometimes walk around there, or we walk around there. Usually the depth of those basins are 6 to 8 inches. And the slope is very gentle. If we need to go deeper, or if we can go deeper, we can go deeper. But that's when we bring the rocks and all those things, and we need to be more careful about walking in there, because if it is at night, you don't see it, well, you don't want to fall down, those type of things. But the calculations, depending on the volume of water that we're dealing with, and we do calculations for a rain event of 2.5 inches. How much water moves with 2.5 inches in that section? That helps us for the dimensions of the basins and the type of plants and trees and grasses and all that. So yes, there is some calculations. If it is overflow of the basins, we call that critical elevations. So we try to distribute all that water in that section. So one basin is not holding all that water. That's impossible. That's never going to happen. But we design it in a way that overflows to this one, overflows to that one, and that's
why you see that series of basins in the image, because we are always accounting for overflow, because like Joaquin said, not one basin's gonna hold all that water, especially where your water's coming from is from 2 very large roofs. So our goal is to slow down that water, hold it in one basin, and then as it starts wanting to overflow, it'll flow into another, starts holding, infiltrating there, and by the time it gets all the way to that last basin by the office, you're really not having a lot of water. That's the goal. So if we do our calculations correct on our end and design, by the time water flows to that last basin, it should be very minimal amount of water.
Can you download that? I can just give you I can pass the presentation to you, so it just stays here before we leave.
Yeah, Joaquin, I saw on the one image where you were showing the overflow area for behind the office. There was a whole row of Texas Rangers there.
Oh, yeah.
Do you foresee removal of these things? Okay, so they're going to stay.
They stay.
Are they considered appropriate for this area?
They are. And these plants come from the Chihuahuan Desert, not the Sonoran Desert. But they're very well established here in the Sonoran Desert. They're not invasive. They consume little water. And they're already established. They look beautiful, and they're here. And we usually do not take plants that are already there, unless they let us. I think there is an African sumac somewhere in there. Me personally, I don't like that plant. I would love to take it away, but it's already there, and it's providing shade, and it's invasive, and it doesn't attract pollinators and the local. That's why I don't like it. But if you want to keep it, you keep it. I just took one of those on this other church. It's funny because, not funny, it's interesting that the last 2 years, some of us been working in churches like a lot. This year we just finished 3 churches. And it's because of heat and flooding in their properties. But also is, what is the role of the church in our community for climate adaptation? That's why, and this is not a competition either. That's why St. Philip's call us. Why can we feel an obligation to diminish heat in our community? Just, whoa, that's pretty cool. And so that's why we work in St. Prince Elementary. Any other observation? Any other? We're very excited about working here, working with you. Hopefully we can make it happen. Right now, if you own a business or something like that, and Nicole takes the initiative on those, is we can come and have a free consultation for your business. And sometimes we're trying to make it residential, but not yet.
We're not there yet.
We're not there yet, okay.
Joaquin and Nicole, thank you so much for coming out here on short notice. I know that there's a lot of urgency to deal with this flooding issue, but it seems to me that we have to keep our heads about this so that we do this for the long range rather than for the, as a remedial thing for flooding that's occurring. Is there any way we can address that in the meantime? You might want to think about that because I know we're still very concerned about it. We're not out of the monsoon season.
Right.
Yet. So any recommendations would be appreciated. And once again, I really appreciate you coming out here on short notice.
Thank you. Yeah. Yes, I mean, we can start right away, but we do need to have some kind of an agreement, a contract, that type of thing. We need to do those calculations and design, and if we do it together, even better, the design. And we can start scheduling and see when we can start doing all this as soon as possible.
Needing to, manage the finances of it. Do basins work without the plantings that can then be added later? Because I think once you get the bobcat or whatever out here, it might make sense to make all the basins, even if we don't have the money for the plantings and, doing the extension of the irrigation.
It's, in terms of efficiency and savings, it's a lot easier and cheaper to do it all at once. You excavate, you have the volunteers, and you plant and finish all that stuff. Otherwise, we need to come back, and it adds cost to the thing.
As well as plants, like grasses, the roots are also helping with infiltration.
Right.
So without that, it's, because all of our soils are compacted through just development and a whole lot of other reasons. And so, plants in conjunction with the actual installation of the rain gardens are pretty crucial to allowing for improvement of that soil. Because as they grow, they're going to break up that soil that's even further below that we can't get to, and then help increase that infiltration. So yes, you can, but it's not best practice.
What is your usual policy about payment? Do you
Right.
ask about half?
Yeah, I was going to mention that. We can send you the final estimate, and in order for us to schedule things and all that stuff, we do need 50% deposit, 50, 50, the area of $7,000, and then once we're done, that's the other payment. Yeah, and so it's half and half. Yeah.
So just to let everybody know kind of where we are with the process of this is that, what we will be doing is providing the information to trustees. They have a major decision process coming up this coming week, which obviously won't be in time to have a full estimate. They'll be associating that priorities with other priorities on the campus. And then following that decision, if the decision is to proceed, then we would be contacting them for, whatever we can contract for, and keeping the congregation up to date, maybe through the monthly newsletter. We can have a little piece each month, and here's where we're at with this. And then as we are looking at scheduling, talk about a couple different things. I think we probably want to do it so that as people come back, snowbirds come back, that we have as many volunteers as possible to help with that work day. The other areas that we're also looking at were flooding by the ASP and by Ravenscroft and the community center. And so those would be maybe staged over a period of years. And again, that will be with trustees to be making those decisions along with church council. So that's kind of a summary of the process of it as it intersects with the rest of the church. So.
Did I understand you to say that you would have a small meeting before we start workday? with the
Ideally,
congregation?
yes.
Yeah, it would be nice, and we talked before that there is a steering committee or the green team. The green team, we can continue working with them. We can design things together, and then we would love to present that to everybody, just to have an agreement of this look good, and then select dates on when do we want to do this, that type of thing.